Welcome to the Monday, December 21st, regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. We have a number of presentations this evening, and I'd like to begin by highlighting Lower Merion High School. Mr. Hughes, principal.
Thank you, everybody, and happy Monday to you all. I'd like to thank you for allowing me this few minutes here to speak about Lower Merion High School. And a second, being displayed on the monitor is going to be a PowerPoint of some pictures that display a variety of photos of our students throughout the year thus far, and some actually even from the end of last year. The pictures have been given to me from our newspaper and yearbook students, as I'm going to speak about some of the many of the programs and events that are good representation of Lower Merion High School. As I've said before, I'm always very proud of Lower Merion students and faculty throughout almost my 20 years. I have to say I admire each and every day how our students and faculty are above the rest in things of promoting leadership through public education in areas of academics and technology, community service, building character and promoting citizenship, and of course keeping the LM traditions alive and strong. So I'd like to take this opportunity to just mention some of the highlights based in the categories from our 2015 school year thus far that I've gathered. I can go on for hours to highlight so many things since September, but instead I just try to narrow everything down to roughly about 41 pages. Just kidding. There's no order to these events or programs and or recognition. A lot of the information was with meetings of students of what they thought I should recognize tonight. So, when talking about academics, I think it should be recognized. It was actually interesting. Two of our TSA seniors, Olivia Johnston and Vivian Klotz, won the first place in the TSA National Website Design Webmaster Competition this past year in Dallas, Texas. They first had to qualify regionally and then state level in order to make this competition. At nationals, they competed against thousands of students and they took first place. It's an accomplishment that these two students have been working on for almost 4 years to finally achieve. It's great. Our computer science students are again working with our elementary students on coding, a spill out from last year's Day of Coding. This year, our students are even sponsoring the first ever Lower Merion High School coding competition on the 4th of February. Dr. Bill Huber from Haverford College, a father of 2 LM students, has once again graciously invited our math senior seminar kids to participate in the Haverford College problem solving group. So our students spend a few hours through nights throughout the semester working alongside Haverford College students, playing with math ideas as they solve clever, challenging, and fun problems. This year, English teacher Jean Mastriano has created the second stage projects during our new Lunch and Learn. She began meeting with students from last year's creative writing class. The students have spent time on creating a living, vital center for development and performance of student work. The group met in September and created a poetry slam. Since then, the second stage has scheduled performances that will present either adult mentor models who discuss their work, struggles, and/or processes, or programs that provide students a space for sharing their writing or forms of expressive art, included but not limited to theater, music, and dance. On November 11th, LM was honored to host Vice Admiral Herman Shalansky, the class of 1974 and current Naval Inspector General. He presented during our Lunch and Learn to many of our 11th grade U.S. history students. He answered questions on foreign policy and discussed his experience as commander of the USS Truman and his current responsibility as Naval Inspector General. And also, he gave me the coolest USS Truman Principal Hughes hat. It's probably against our policy of gift giving, but we'll talk about that later. So one of our seniors, Blessing Asuza, she led a girls' leadership initiative on November 9th. Blessing had 3 representatives that she works with from Haverford College, met with a number of students and facilitated in-depth discussion about race, gender, and obstacles. Several of our science students and film students had a great opportunity to see the Hillman documentary on November 23rd in the LM auditorium. During Lunch and Learn, the producer of the film, an LM grad, has over the past several years been working on a biography based on the life of renowned vaccinologist Dr. Maurice Hillman. He invented over 20 vaccines, 9 of which are still used today for children. With her partner, Dr. Paul Offit of Children's Hospital, and director Don Mitchell, they created a film that will be honored at the Sundance Film Festival. We had 160 LM kids attend, and they were able to provide feedback on the film to these great people. Our 10th grade English teachers on November 25th had the sophomore class view Star Wars. Good timing, huh? A New Hope and An Empire Strikes Back. The modern version of the hero is a profound part of the 10th grade English curriculum, and it was actually pretty cool to see a lot of the students dressed up and engaging conversations afterward. This year, our art department created its first ever digital art magazine called Inside Out. They pushed this out to many students and families and community members in October and had great results, with over 330 views in 1 hour. Since then, 10 students who want to be part of the next edition have stepped up to lead the magazine as writers, photographers, selling advertising space, and designing the pages. Our AP government classes will have Lower Merion Township Manager Ernie McNeely talk to them about local government issues coming on the 13th. And once again, under the guidance of social studies teacher Ms. Susan Naples, we'll be hosting the Paperclips project concerning diversity, prejudice, and intolerance in early spring. This program will bring educators from Whitehall, Tennessee to speak about the Paperclips project to LM students. The project was started in 1998 as a simple 8th grade project on prejudice and tolerance and evolved into a project that gained worldwide attention. To highlight some of the community service and building character and citizenship, one of our first big projects this year was called the Toiletries for Teens, and it was sponsored by our Lower Merion High School's Becton Scholars. The school toiletry drive was able to bring in 30 boxes donations that were donated to and delivered to the Covenant House in Germantown, an outreach program for homeless youth, and where 10 of our Becton Scholars delivered the materials. We've had a few student-run programs providing tutoring service after school, one to our own Penwyn Elementary and one to Heston Elementary in Philadelphia. Our Build On program, which is amazing. We honored actually, our wall of 100 hours of service in October. We have over 50 members inducted to that wall of service, with some of our students with over 300 hours of service. Thus far, we've had 209 Build On members, having served over 3,631 hours since September 1st. Our Becton Scholars hosted a community parent panel on Friday, October 30th. The purpose of the panel discussion was to impart words of wisdom upon our budding youth and share experiences. It was well attended by LM students and 16 community members. And recently, LaSalle University's president for advancement reached out to the Becton Scholars Program to set up a date for the speaking engagement with LaSalle University's president, Dr. Hans. She was recently installed as the 29th president of the university. She's a lawyer, a former academic, and former academic dean and two-time university president. And she'll be speaking to our students on the talent lie, grit to great. When speaking of traditions in athletics and activities, we had over 400 students in athletics this fall, and numbers of involved in clubs and activities have greatly increased. I thought this past fall sports seasons for our teams were very successful. The Central League is a highly competitive 12-team league, larger than most, making winning the league very difficult. Several teams fared very well and continued their postseason competition. I just thought I would highlight for you the girls' tennis made District 1 tournament. The boys' cross-country team won the Central League Championship and were named co-champs, and they were also named the Central League Sportsmanship Award winners. Field hockey capped off the regular season with back-to-back home wins, earning the program's first district tournament berth, and then our golf team finished the season with another student qualifying for the District 1. Our school spirit is always high at LM's Maroon Madness, which was held on November 30th. Whole Lower Merion community put an amazing event, and I was impressed with how well the event was coordinated and involved student, faculty, and staff that were there. And kudos to players for providing our school community with a very powerful performance in the fall production of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Kudos to Mr. Copeland for having a small part in the show. Even though he was Mr. Hughes' understudy, he did a great job. It is great to see how many of our students have taken leadership roles in our clubs, from speech and debate to mock trial. Again, these are just a few highlights that I wanted to share with you, and I thank you for allowing me to do so. We're very proud of what they've done so far with our school, LM students, faculty, and staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. It's always exciting to hear about what's going on in our schools. Mr. Copeland?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Hughes. It's always good to be your understudy, and I will remember that. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Our next presentation is, let's see, what order are we going on? The board, I think it was November 19th was the last time we spoke about the facilities issue, and since then we've had an opportunity to present an updated report to the Facilities and Finance Committee. Mr. Ganan and our architects are here to share with you an update on that information, where we are on two of our projects, Penn Win and also the District Administration Office. Mr. Ganan?
Good evening. Actually, we're talking about Penn Win tonight.
Oh.
But I have to say, Sean, you're a tough act to follow. It's especially difficult to follow not only you, but all the students of Lower Merion High School. But try we must. All I can say is I'm glad I don't have to talk about the budget. So as the superintendent indicated, we were in front of you last month, and we were here with Scott France from the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and the big message we had at the time was that we had updated enrollment projections based on actual enrollments in September, and what we thought we were going to have a couple of years to react to, we basically have no time to react to at the elementary school level. So since then, and that evening, we presented some ideas about how we could add on to various schools and what some potential costs might be. What we have been able to figure out is that we can probably get through next year at most places, with the exception of Penn Win Elementary. We are going to have to add space for Penn Win Elementary. And so this evening, we're here to talk to you about adding temporary classrooms at Penn Win this summer, and then talk through some concepts for adding permanent classrooms along with an auxiliary gymnasium. So this evening, we're asking you to approve or give us permission to file a land development plan for the temporary classrooms. We'll talk about some of the concepts we have for the permanent classrooms, and we're going to be presenting that to the Penn Win community in early January, and we'll come back to you later for approval on that. So let me just go on here. I talked about this. Okay, Danielle.
So what I'm going to talk about is really looking at the site and trying to figure out where to put the additions onto the building. So this is an aerial view of the Penn Win campus. To get you oriented, I'll say on the top right side of the property is Haverford Road. Now that is actually the east side of the property. On the south side is Drayton Road, Trenton Road on the west, and Suffolk on the north side of the property. What this really depicts is that there's two large green spaces on either side of the property, and then off of Drayton Lane there's a bus access coming to the site for the bus drop-off, and on the Suffolk side of the property there's the parent drop-off onto the property. Now what this is hard to tell from an aerial view that you really can't see, on the Haverford side of the road, that Haverford Road is much lower than the actual first floor elevation of the building. So there's quite a grade differential there. Plus you have the trees that encompass the entire site, very mature trees. So this is a graphic representation. You can see where the parking areas are on the site, one adjacent to the bus drop-off area, one adjacent to the parent drop-off area. The areas shown in the tan colors are all the impervious areas on the site for the most part. We have a play area, including a softball field and multi-purpose fields adjacent to Trent Road. This is a plan that you saw last month when we were starting to explore where to put the additions. But this time we were looking at a 4-classroom addition off of what we call the 1949 wing, which is a single loaded corridor that parallels Haverford Road. We're also looking at a potential location for the modular classrooms, which are shown just off of the soft play area in the grassed playfield area. We're trying to keep the modular classrooms 30 feet away from the building, which is required by code. So to give you a visual idea of what it looks like on the site, I'm standing in the parent drop-off lane just off of Drayton, off of Suffolk Road, looking at the 1949 wing. In the center of that 1949 wing is a lighter colored brick. That's actually a utilitarian part of the addition, which is basically toilet rooms. And then over on the right-hand side where you see the angled shadow line, That's actually an exit coming out of the 1949 wing on the right-hand side, and then a ramp going down to a lower level room, which is used for storage, and access to the pipe tunnels on either side, the crawl spaces on either side of the storage room. So we really need to maintain those access points. So when we further developed what that 4-classroom addition would look like, which is actually 2 classrooms on each floor, we were going through a toilet room, taking out a toilet room to provide access to those 2 classroom areas. And you can see how it's taking over 3 parking spaces, 1 actual parking space and 2 parking spaces that were left in reserve. It's also eliminating that exit drive that goes around the parking areas and exits onto Suffolk Lane. And it's basically exiting through the parking bays going out to the road. When we started to really discuss this with the principal and looking at what your enrollments are and adding 4 classrooms to the site, he really needed an additional teaching space in the athletic portion of the building, meaning he needed an auxiliary gym. An auxiliary gym about half the size of the existing gym. So that's about twice the size of those 2 classrooms. And you can see if we put an auxiliary gym adjacent to those classrooms, how much additional parking space we would lose. Not only parking space, but circulation in the parking area, as well as play area that's in that adjacent area. So we looked at another option of where to locate the auxiliary gym. This is actually shown adjacent to the stage. It's actually in back of the stage, where we're proposing an auxiliary gym, some toilet facilities, ramping down to that auxiliary gym to make up some of the grade differential because of the site starts to slope away from the building at that point. With this plan, we were staying away from the outfield of the softball field, as well as staying away from the detention system that exists there now. But there's actually a stormwater main that goes right through where we're proposing to do the addition, which would need to be relocated. The group of classrooms that over to the left, adjacent to Trent Road, are the proposed modular classrooms. Just see that we have a sufficient distance away from the construction area. Pictorially showing you what that looks like in the area that we're proposing for the addition. This is the exit off of the stage, and you can see the grade differential there as you're looking back towards the play structures that's in the back. We're looking towards Drayton Road there. And this is kind of coming around the corner around Trenton Road. You can see the mature trees all along the roadway and some of the play structures. This is actually looking at the corner of Trent Road and Suffolk. So then we started to think, well, instead of having 2 construction areas, why don't we combine it into 1 construction area? We learned after further analysis of the zoning requirements that we had 13,000 square feet of impervious area that we could add to the site. So it's allowing us to not just concentrate on areas that were already impervious areas, but look at other options in terms of where we could locate the addition. So this is the first idea that we came up with in terms of providing not only auxiliary gym, but also 2 classrooms on the first floor, 2 classrooms on the second floor. But you can see with this particular plan, trying to keep it outside of the softball outfield and outside of the detention system, that we're pushing the building 84 feet away from the existing footprint of the existing building, which is encroaching on those modular classrooms. So we looked at, this is actually the second floor. We're using those 2 existing stairs at the end of the building to provide egress from the classrooms, looking at the code, which is the 2009 code has been adopted by the township. We do have sufficient egress capacity for those 2 classrooms. The second sketch that we looked at was trying to keep all the classrooms in line as you go from the existing building out into the addition. But the way the auxiliary gym is oriented, it's actually 70 feet out from the line of the existing building, again encroaching on the modular classrooms, as well as the addition is encroaching on the outfield of the softball field, and more importantly, it's encroaching on the stormwater detention basin, which is not a good thing. So in the third sketch, what we did is try to tighten it up a bit. Reoriented the auxiliary gym. Now we're looking at 50 feet away from the existing building, looking at keeping that far enough away from the modular classrooms. We're still exploring ideas of where to look at the location for the modular classrooms that would provide a easier egress back and forth, a path back and forth from the existing building to the modular classrooms, and separating the construction zone from the school zone. So that's what we're working on now, more in detail. And again, the second floor, being able to provide egress from those classrooms on the second floor.
So these are the concepts that we're looking at right now. And again, for this evening, and there is an agenda item for this, we're asking for your approval to file the land development plan for the temporary modular classrooms to be installed this summer. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentations. Questions from the board? Ms. Ackman?
Can you just talk a little bit about how you plan to engage the community in this process in terms of the design and making sure they're aware of what's going on?
Well, we do have a meeting planned with the HSA, to which the Penguin Civic Association has been invited. That's in the first week of January.
Great.
So we'll get some additional input at that point. We have to get the plan submitted for the modulars by the 15th of January. But at that point, we can still take some ideas from people about the best way to arrange for classrooms, et cetera. I mean, obviously, there's a limited amount of space, and there's a lot of green space, and everybody would like to preserve as much green space as possible. So we want to be sensitive to that.
Right.
We've also already, we've had one presentation to the executive board of the Penguin HSA, and we're going to follow it up again, as Mr. Ganand says, in January. This is clearly an accelerated process, and the numbers have caused us to move at a faster rate than we would like, but we will not leave out getting input from the community.
I just thought it was important to highlight that
Sure.
For
Right.
the benefit of the public moving forward. Great.
When we submit in January, we won't be on the agenda in front of the Township Planning Commission and then commissioners until March. So that gives us even more time to go back and have another meeting with the Civic Association or others who want to make sure they understand what our thoughts are.
Mr. Bonaventura?
Thank you. Pat, at the facilities meeting, there was some discussion about possibly moving the portables to a different spot. Is what we've presented tonight where we're going to end up, or is that still being looked at?
No, we're still looking at that. We've got a sketch. I didn't feel comfortable presenting it tonight because the principal wants to have some more time to review that with the school community, but we're looking at that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. The only reason why I bring it up is I think the agenda item that we're approving is temporary classrooms consistent with the plan presented at the meeting. So I don't know if we need to change the language of the agenda item. It's E under facilities, whether this language allows them to place the portable somewhere else, the modular somewhere else.
That's what everybody is.
Yeah, Dr.
Can I-
Gilbert,
I'll
we'll
ask
continue to
another
take
question.
questions. Thanks, Kim.
I'm just,
The item, I think the item's expansive enough to cover anything that was presented here tonight.
Okay, but a different location of the modulars was not presented tonight.
Let me then be a little bit more specific. The idea here was that instead of putting these modular classrooms here, we would seek to locate them in this area. And the advantages of that could be that we have a better route to get students to and from the building to the classrooms, whatever students will be out there. And the other is that it may allow us to get a better separation and allocation of space in this field between what's going to be the construction area and what's going to be left over and able to be used as a playground during the construction.
Are we still okay, Mr. Roos?
You can modify it to give a little more wiggle room after a business meeting or such other modifications as recommended by the administration.
Okay. I'll ask you to restate that on my behalf. Thank you. All right, Dr. Gilbert, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering if, since we haven't heard about it, but I'm assuming that the principal has thought about this issue of the cafeteria, and are we going to have enough space in the cafeteria to accommodate all of the students? Thank you, Mr. Brunel.
Good evening. Yes, we did think about those other spaces as well. The way we structure our lunch periods right now, the only thing that we really I had brought up was needing maybe a second person to help ring kids out. The volume of kids is obviously going up, and therefore we kind of get a juggernaut at the cash register. But the way we structure things in the cafeteria right now, we are able to accommodate all the kids that will be coming. Thank you.
Additional questions? Please, Dr. O'Leary.
How, does this get us through the highest projected number, or what else might we need, or?
This does get us through the highest projected number. What it does not do is reclaim any facilities that we've already subdivided and lost. So for instance, a large group instruction room remains 2 classrooms, I believe.
And do we still have an art room and other rooms? Like what?
I believe we lost 1/2 an art room. No, you got both?
We have been able to maintain our art and music rooms. We also have art on a cart and music on a cart at this time.
Mr. Bernadowitz, while you're still there, question regarding play and playground sports spaces. What are the thoughts in terms of during construction and then post-construction, where obviously a larger group of children will need to expend some energy?
In terms, we're obviously going to lose space.
Right.
We're very fortunate right now. The way I view it, we basically can run 2 soccer games at a time during each recess. This will end up probably constricting us to 1 soccer game. One of the things that we have that is what I feel a little underutilized is some of the space in the far corner closest to Trent and Suffolk Avenue. And it's a far space from my perspective because it's a distance. And part of what we had discussed in some previous meetings was having some fencing there to separate the kids from cars. And that might give us an opportunity to push out a little more and more fully utilize some of those spaces on the perimeter.
Okay, great.
The other thing that's hard to see from the photographs is that there's quite a bit of elevation change. And so we talked about possibility of evening some of that out as time goes on.
Great. Thank you. Additional questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. Thank you all.
Thank you. We have one other presentation. Before we do that, I keep forgetting to mention this. I think we opened up our Wi-Fi, did we, Mr. Frazier? So members of the audience, you can log on to a guest Wi-Fi if you so choose. You'll probably not want to do that because this is, but just in case. Mr. Orlando is going to give us an overview of a preliminary budget. While he's setting up, let me just say this. This is an activity, the board has nothing to vote on tonight. All we're doing is providing the board and the public with a preliminary budget view, which has to be posted on our websites. This is an unusually early period of time, and I want to emphasize this is an extraordinarily preliminary budget. It's also a function of some extraordinary hard work that the administration has gone through. But even having said that, it's interesting. We are now taking a look in December, which we are required to do, to post a budget that's going to be operational for the fall of 2016. and we're doing it on a time frame when the state legislature is not posting a budget, which they were supposed to do in July of 2015. So we're doing what the law says we should do. But we're doing it preliminarily, and we've got some more work to do on this structure. With that, Mr. Orlando?
Well, thank you. As Mr. Copeland said, we're required under Act 1 to present a budget at this time of the year. Obviously, we're less than halfway through the current year, and we have no state budget for the 15-16 yet. So we're doing what we're required by law. Okay, so let me go through first the budget schedule. There is accelerated this year about a month earlier due to the fact that 90 days from the primary, and since it's a presidential year, it's about 3 or 4 weeks earlier than what normally we do, which usually is in January, and then we approve the preliminary budget in February, but it is accelerated even more this year than in the past. So the first thing we're required to do is at least 20 days prior to the adoption to have it displayed to the public, and since this is the last public meeting, 20 days prior to the adoption, that's why I'm here. And the second thing we'll have to do is to advertise at least 10 days prior to the preliminary budget the intent to adopt it. The deadline for the adoption is January 27th, so at our January 25th board meeting, the board will have to approve a preliminary budget to be in compliance with Act 1. Please note, as we've said in the past, it's just a preliminary budget, so that can change and has in the past from that time until the final budget. On that same evening, there will be a motion also to authorize us to advertise for the exceptions that we done on the 25th. The deadline to file them with PD is February 11th. For some reason, if you do not need to file, or cannot file for the exceptions, you actually can go for a referendum question. That is due by February 26th. March 2nd is the date that PDE will review the exceptions and either determine they've been granted or denied. For some reason, if they have been denied, you have 5 days then to submit a referendum question to the county officials. And then as far as the final budget goes, at least 20 days prior to the deadline, we must allow for public inspection. So the last day could be June 10th. June 20th would be the last day, at least 10 days prior for the advertising intent to adopt the budget. And the final day would be June 30th is the deadline for school districts to adopt a final budget for the 16-17 fiscal year. We'll look later in the presentation at our particular budget calendar. So under Act 1, there's a thing called the index. The index is made of 2 factors. It is the change in the state average weekly wage for the most recently 3 completed calendar years, plus the change in the federal employment cost index for elementary and secondary schools. You add those 2 together, divide them by 2, and you come up with the index. So if you can look at the history, the index has been anywhere from 4.4 down to 1.4. For the upcoming year, the index is 2.4%. And then on the right side is the tax increase. They've been above the index for the most part due to the fact that the board has filed for some or all the exceptions, and we'll go into them next. So there are 4 exceptions that allows you to raise taxes above the index. The first 2 deal with debt service. So if you have debt incurred prior to the effective date was June of 2006, or if the voters approve the authorization of debt called electoral debt, that also could go for an exception above the index. I believe there's been 2 cases, Upper Dublin and State College, have been successful in electoral debt. The other 2 are special education and retirement. Special education exception is 2 things. You take the last 2 completed years, so in this case, it'd be 13-14 and 14-15, the actual special education. You subtract the difference between the 2 and also the difference in the revenue regarding that. And then you multiply it by the index. Anything above the 2.4 is eligible for an exception. Retirement is the change in the retirement rate for 15-16 versus 16-17, and then you multiply that by the base. The base is either the 10-11 salaries or a lower number if that's in the current year. So in our case, the base is 101.3 million. Multiply that, subtract out the state subsidy, multiply it by the index, and anything above the index becomes an exception. So in this case, we have the 2 check marks against special ed and retirement, which we've applied for in the past, subject to PD approval, and they approximately are about $4 million. So what drives the budget increase? So in the past, the directive always been to maintain our current instructional programs. This budget we're presenting this evening does do that. There's been a couple other factors, and I think the presentation before me, Pat talked about the enrollment growth, and we had the Montgomery County did an enrollment study for us, which shows the enrollment will continue to grow for the next several years. So we are seeing enrollment growth. So more teachers been hired, there's been more books, more computers that is in this budget. So under the enrollment growth, we talked about this in the past, we do have additional positions. There's 25 and a half additional positions, both professionally and support. Salaries makes up a big portion of our budget, about 47% of the budget for the current staff and the future staff that we have. Retirement contribution. So we just mentioned that we're going to file for an exemption. PSERS has authorized or certified a 16% increase in the employer contribution rate. So currently, for 15-16 school year, it's 25.84%. It's been certified at 30.03, so it's over a 16% increase. Now, one thing to note is, as part of the budget process, you're probably reading the paper, there's been different potential pension reform laws that have been proposed. Nothing's been enacted, so that could change the number depending upon what finally gets approved at the Harrisburg level. The other 2 areas is special education program mandates. We talked about this in the past. We get very little state funding for special education, so most of that mandates fall on the local taxpayers to fund. Revenue, again, revenue has been pretty stagnant, pretty stable for the most part. At the state level, obviously there's no budget in place, so you're going to see a lot of the numbers haven't changed from 14-15 because we don't know exactly what the state is going to do with their budget. A couple of areas to look at on certain issues, current and future tax revenues. So we've been pretty fortunate the last couple of years. We've had a stable base, slight increases. Hopefully that will continue. A lot has to do with the economy, so hopefully that will continue. But there always is uncertainty in dealing with that. Interest income, it's probably going to be a broken record over the last 5 or 6 years I've been here. It's not increasing. Long are the days when we were, we look back years ago where you were getting few million dollars in interest income, and obviously getting 25 and 30 and 40 basis points over the last 5 years. My hair used to be a lot darker than it is now, but there's nothing I can do about it. And then we talk about the state budget. The current budget hasn't been passed, but in February, the governor is scheduled to present the 16-17 budget. So that's about 6 weeks from now, so we'll see what happens. But that's what he's required by law, so we'll have to see how that's all going to play out. So let's look at where the money comes from. So as you can see in this pie chart, the vast majority of it comes from the local taxpayer. So 83% comes from the local tax base. There's a little under 13% that comes from the state. One thing to note is the state is called an aid ratio. So you take your personal income divided by your market value and determines the wealth of a district. The lowest it can be is 1.5, and we're one of about, say, 20 or 22 districts that have that case. So you're not going to see a lot of funding from the state, mostly due to that factor. Very minimal federal funding, about $700,000. And then we're using, as we have in the past, almost 4% or about $9 million to balance the books with our fund balance. So just kind of looking at the numbers here, you can see the 4% of the fund balance is $9.3 million. There's our local sources, not much change. The current real estate tax is showing, I guess, about $4 million higher. Most of that is due to the fact that in the 16-17 budget, the state tax allocation for the gambling monies has not been distributed yet. So we can't show it in our preliminary budget because the state has not authorized that, and that usually happens around April 15th. So if you look at the state sources, you can see most of them haven't changed. You can see that one gap I just talked about, the state property tax reduction allocation, roughly the $3.5 million that's in the budget. When the Secretary of the Budget approves that number, we'll know what that number is in April or early May. So you add those figures together with the state sources of $700,000, we're showing out total revenue and fund balance at $250 million. So now is, okay, how do we support the children in the school district? So you can see the vast majority of this budget, over 2/3, or about $171 million, goes for instructional services. So these are going to the classrooms, whether it's regular education students, vocational students, guidance services, computer, staff development, all for the instructional services to the children. The support services, which is about 21%, or around $53 million, is the next largest item. So you're looking at transportation, maintenance on the buildings, legal services, and other board services and the administration, making up the 21%. Debt service, roughly at 11%, is about $28 million. So the current debt bonds we have issued, that's what we're paying annually for that principal and interest. And then we have about 2.2%, which is about 5.8%, which is for athletics and student activities and community services. And the remaining $850,000, which is for a budgetary reserve and transfers to our student activities. So then looking at the same expenditures in a different manner, known as an object. So you can see the salaries for the district for the upcoming year, which includes current salaries in our collective bargaining agreements and new salaries, is about $123 million. Benefits, which is the next largest item, that is our PSERS contribution, our Social Security contribution, healthcare, and also our workers' comp makes up the bulk of that $76 million. So if you add those two together, you're at 77% of the budget is salaries and benefits. The remaining $60 million comes under other. So other would be any type of special education services, consultants, utilities, tuition payments we make to charter schools, the VOTEC, general insurance, fuel, books, supplies, software, laptops, computers, and our debt service makes up the other $60 million. So when you add those four categories together, our total preliminary budget right now is $258,934,268. So if you take that minus the $250 million we had in the previous slide, we have about a little over $8.8 million we need to balance the budget. So in order to do that, we would propose anyway to increase the real estate taxes by 4.43%. That would be the index plus the exceptions. So your millage rate would go from 26.2321 to 27.3963. And then we also show there are budget-to-budget expenditures in this year versus the upcoming year increased low over 5%, or roughly about $12.6 million. So what does that mean as far as the median tax household? $250,680. Currently, the face amount is $6,576. That would increase $992 to $6,868. And then the budget calendar. So on January 25th, the board has to approve by January 27th a preliminary budget. And again, it is a preliminary budget. As Mr. Copeland said, that we have a lot more work to do, and this can be changed by the board as they see fit. There's a proposed final budget that has to be approved. That will occur at the April 18th meeting. And then June 13th is the final board meeting, so that's the final budget adoption. So 20 days prior to that, we would have to have the public inspection deadline for the proposed final budget, and then 10 days prior to that, at minimum, to advertise we're adopting the 16-17 budget. So that is an overview of where we're at right now in the 16-17 budget process. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Orlando. Questions? Mr. Driscoll, please.
Thank you, Vic, very much. Questions keep coming around, or at least the papers have been reporting that some school districts have been borrowing short-term to make, with the budget impasse in Harrisburg, and I've seen other school districts claim they may not open in January. But again, don't know, not going to pick out school names, but given the budget impasse for now, where do you see us sitting for this year?
We'll be having school in June, in January. We'll be having school in January. No, I think right now, yes, there's been a lot of other districts that have had some financial issues, which are led to borrowing. We do not have that issue here. We have some very strong financials, and I guess the only really plus of not receiving a lot of state funding is that we don't get a lot of money. So, we don't have to rely on it. A lot of districts have 60, 70, 80% of the funding come from the state, and we're not getting that. Obviously, they have issues. So there are some districts that are borrowing money to stay open.
So if you're relying heavily on state funding, you're probably also relying significantly on federal funding. And what you generally have to do is you generally have to use your local dollars first, and then you get the federal money later. So they've been hit, doubly hit.
Additional questions? Please, ask away.
Given, and I'm probably going to, this might jump into the finance report, but we're doing well. Should we need to borrow money, our bond rating is still very
AAA.
good.
Correct.
So, and do you know off the top of your head how many school districts in the Commonwealth would have?
Not many. I would say probably less than 10.
Okay.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This doesn't have to be approved right now, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in terms of the timeline, does that change at all if the state doesn't come up with their budget at some point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Orlando. We appreciate it. We will now move to audience recognition on agenda items. If you could come forward and sign in with Ms. LaPera, and there is a 3-minute time limit. And if you could let us know your name and your place of residence in the community. Ms. Jenkins, you're welcome to begin.
Okay.
Please.
My name is Ruth Jenkin. I live on Worcester Road in Wynwood. I also would like to compliment Sean Hughes as the leader of Lower Merion High School. I've had several discussions with him with regard to the traffic situation. I'm sure that, I hope that many of you have seen the traffic video that has been posted, and that the difficult situation that is created on Owen Road, on Church Road, and on the crosswalk between going to Arnold Field. This is a major safety issue, and much of the traffic is due to the overcrowding of Lower Merion High School. I don't understand where your future, where you're looking in terms of the future. When will it come time to do some building at Harriton and move more students over to Harriton High School. How much building can we continue to do? And where does that fit into our budget? Penn Win is going to be filled to capacity. And then when the next group of students come in, where are we going to build again? Is this going to be an ongoing, continuous thing? I know that you rejected my idea of a central kindergarten, but please try to rethink that, because that will prevent this continuous building by opening up classrooms in each of the schools. And also, where is the money coming from? Is this the same money that's in our $285 million budget, or is this other money that needs to be raised? I think you have, a fiscal, a safety, and a responsibility to the community, and to the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Amalia Ben-Parath. I live in Wynwood, and I'm a freshman at Lower Merion High School. And I'm here to talk about sleep deprivation. So in classes, we have to get forms signed, take past quizzes, and rules are set so that we stay safe in class. And because the school does always tell us that our health and our safety is the most important thing. But we're not getting enough sleep, and according to pediatric health experts, that is dangerous. I have friends who sleep maybe 5 hours a night. On a good night, I get 7 hours, maybe. And I'm supposed to be getting 8.5 hours minimum of sleep, and I'm just not able to get it. Sleep deprivation not only affects how we feel, but, it does, but mentally, with the amount of sleep I'm getting, I am more susceptible to mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety, and not just due to normal stress and anxiety of high school, but it really is because since I'm so tired, I can't logically deal with it and just take a step back and calm down. I'm just stressed and tired. And also at school, I can't perform my best, and no one can really if they're tired and distracted and just waiting until they can go home and relax. No one can perform at their best. And in high school, you have to start thinking about midterms, which are coming up, finals, SAT, ACT, all of that. And I just can't focus enough to perform my best. And not only that, kids in high school are starting to drive. Sleep-deprived driving is almost the equivalent of drunk driving, and it's one of the more dangerous things you can do in your life, and possibly one of the last things you could do in your life, God forbid. So I ask the board, please, to consider pushing the high school start time or switching it with elementary school, since elementary school students do, biologically speaking, need less amount of sleep. And they go to bed earlier, get up earlier. And it's just best for students' health and performance, and it's best overall for students and the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And just a reminder, at this time, we're taking public comment on agenda items only. We'll be glad to accept public comment on other items at the end of the meeting. So just going forward, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Faust. I live in Bryn Mawr, and I've been in the district 15 years, 6 more to go. I've had 2 through Harriton, 1 still at Harriton, and I just wanted to address the fact that Harriton High School is losing 2 of its most beloved staff members, right? They're an integral part of our everyday fabric of our school. Dr. Eveslag, seems so weird to call you that now. Dr. Eveslag and Mrs. Matsko are in our halls daily, setting the tone for a warm and respectful community. They know our students by name. They give our teachers the support that they need to create an amazing academic environment. Losing both is gonna have a huge impact on our entire Harriton community. I'm here just asking you to plan carefully for this transition time, especially given the fact now that Mrs. Matsko will be leaving and was responsible for the scheduling of all of our students for so many years. Somebody needs to be there overseeing that with the knowledge of what that entails. And also, I really feel strongly that our students need to be able to see and feel the presence of Dr. Eveslog in our building as much as possible, especially our seniors. They have had him as their principal since 6th grade. I cannot imagine. I have a daughter who is a senior. I've also spoken to other students. For them to come back to school after winter break and have their world even more turned upside down. They're already stressed with what school are they getting into, who got deferred, what they didn't get into. It's an emotional roller coaster, and to have that one consistent person that they can rely on at their school be gone from the building is going to be another thing for them to have to adjust to. So again, I'm just saying, I think it's imperative that this transition time be dealt with very carefully, and that the emotional toll it is going to take on our students, teachers, and parents not be overlooked. In asking the students what they love the most about Dr. Eveslog is just the way that he's there and present during the lunch and learn, the way he says goodbye at the RAM at the end of the day. He's engaged in our school with our kids and with our community. They want to know he's still going to be there and he's still going to speak at their graduation. Lastly, even if you're going to be promoting from within the district, I believe a search committee for the new Harriton principal absolutely needs to include parents. We offer a different opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. There another speaker? Is that the
Beth
end of the
Roberts.
list? Okay, please come forward.
Beth Roberts.
Hi, my name is Beth Roberts. My son came through the Lower Merion School District, graduated in 2013. My daughter right now is Lower Merion School District as a sophomore. On tonight's agenda, I believe you're voting for human resources. My understanding that this is sort of a rubber stamp approval of coaches that are already in place. Representing different parents and all, we just would like the reassurance that for the girls' basketball team, that there were 2 parent meetings, 2 student-athlete meetings, and 2 surveys. From those, I believe a number of complaints and allegations were made, and we would like reassurance that that is still in progress. That's all.
Ms. LaPera, was that the last speaker? Okay, thank you very much for the comment.
I can speak to some of the comments that were raised tonight. First of all, in terms of the student start times, we are looking into that. It's part of our strategic plan. In the interim, while it's being discussed at the strategic plan level, we're trying different kinds of things. For instance, we took a look at a midterm schedule that would have started much later in the morning. The principal shared that with students and teachers, and both students and teachers did not want that schedule, so we're not going to implement that this year. We also, any switches with times is going to be a tremendous investment in transportation. We are looking at contractors who will be able to give us an idea of what rerouting transportation would cost and what the impact would be, so we are taking a look at that, and it is being looked at in various other ways. In terms of losing Dr. Eveslog, not taking him. He's going to be at Harriton for the rest of the year. You'll be able to see him Smile, Dr. Abasani. See? No, in all seriousness, his participation will be enhanced certainly for the few times he comes here, but his primary role will be in Harriton. And my process for selecting a new principal will be inclusive, as it always has been. In terms of complaints or concerns about coaches, we take those seriously, and we follow up whenever they're brought to our attention.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Before I move to the approval of minutes from Board of School Directors meetings, just want to welcome a new board member, Mr. David Fetterman. We have 4 of us who were re-elected, myself, Ms. Devonna Venturo, Ms. Robinson, and Ms. Pollard. But let me just read briefly Mr. Fetterman's bio. David Fetterman has been a resident of Lower Merion for nearly 20 years and lives in Penn Valley with his wife Jill and children Eli, a senior, and Katie, a freshman at Harriton High School. David received his BA with high honors in economics from Penn State, then earned his law degree from Georgetown University. He became a partner in a large Philadelphia law firm. In mid-career, David attended the Harvard School of Public Health and obtained his master's degree in that area as well. He has taught in healthcare, finance, as an adjunct professor at the Widener Health Law Institute. He now has his own law practice. David has been active in attending school board meetings, staying current on school board issues, and keeping up with his children's school activities. David has a special interest in the effects that the proliferation of government-mandated high-stakes standardized testing has on our educational system. And in his spare time, David enjoys golf, tennis, and biking, and also patrols the outfield for the Mainline Reformed Temple softball team. I didn't know those things at the end. So again, let me welcome David Fetterman to the board table at his first official business meeting. So with that, I'll move to approve the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings: November 16th, regular business board meeting; December 7th, reorganizational board meeting; and accept the following committee meeting minutes: November 18th, communications; December 2nd, curriculum; December 9th, communications; December 11th, policy; December 15th, legislative; December 17th, facilities and purchasing; and December 18th, finance. Are any questions on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Copeland?
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The superintendent is recommending that the Board of School Directors approves the attached human resources actions HR 1 through HR 4.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
With that, I'd like to take a second to introduce some folks who have taken some administrative positions in the district. Joining us as the permanent assistant principal at Lower Merion High School, Mrs. Karen DeFranco. Mrs. DeFranco, would you like to? Would you like to share a few words of wisdom?
You have to come to the podium.
It shouldn't be. Oh, you don't have a voice? Well, whatever you say will certainly be far more articulate than was, oh, never mind.
I just want to thank everyone. It's been a wonderful 15 years here at Lower Merion, and I'm really excited about continuing my new permanent position. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome and introduce Jennifer Keogh as the interim assistant principal at Gladwin Elementary School. Jennifer?
Mr. Copeland, Board of School Directors, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I'm excited and looking forward to supporting the students, staff, and families at Gladwin and Belmont Hills. I truly believe that it's an honor and a privilege to work in the Lower Merion School District, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And brand new to the Lower Merion School District, Jason Lilly joins us as Supervisor for Science, Technology, and Mathematics. Mr. Lilly?
Good evening. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the board, the district, and the community for this opportunity. I'd also like to take a minute to thank my wife and kids, who've been my biggest cheerleaders throughout this process, and they're here and should probably be heading to bed at this point. But Lower Merion School District has a stellar reputation, and just know that I'll do my very best to continue that tradition of excellence here. I'm very excited to get started and very excited to meet everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. No, I have one other pursuant to Section 1076 of the Public School Code. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors appoint Dr. Scott Eveslage as Assistant Superintendent for a term to commence January 1st, 2016 and end June 30th, 2020. It is further recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the employment contract between the district and Dr. Eveslage in the form presented.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Dr. Eveslage. You can come to the mic and share some words.
Before Dr. Eveslage addresses the group, let me just say that it's no secret that early on in my meeting with Scott, I was impressed with his dedication, his intellect, and his willingness to work hard. It is truly, as you heard tonight, something special to watch as you stand with him in his school with students. He not only knows their names, but he cares deeply about what happens during every day. That's not only important for a building principal, but that's important for somebody who's going to have district-wide levels to lift. So I look forward to working with him. I also think it's a testament to him that when I had a conversation with Dr. McGinley is the one who left me with all of the facilities problems that I have to solve. He said, "You think it'd be all right?" He says, "I was there when Scott was born," and I thought, no, I mean, he was there. He was there to give him his first teaching job, and so thanks for coming back and sharing this moment, Chris. We appreciate that. Dr. Eveslage.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland, and thank you, members of the board, for your confidence in me. I'm really excited to transition into this portion of my career and this different level of service to the district. I feel very fortunate since 2006 to have been afforded many leadership opportunities by the board, by Dr. McGinley, by this community, and I've been very fortunate to serve in 3 different buildings here in our district. Each of those have been wonderful experiences with tremendously strong communities and wonderful students. And it just speaks to the quality of this district that I've grown to love, and I love serving. I'm really looking forward to serving in a different capacity. We have a great group of administrators with whom we'll be working to kind of realize this strategic plan. It's an exciting time for our district, and I will say, and I really appreciated what Ms. Faust said. I can assure the Harriton community that stepping away from them in this capacity is really difficult for me because I love the students, I love the Harriton community, as I have each of the communities that I've been a part of, and I can assure that community that they have my deepest commitment for a fulfilling remainder of the school year and a long-term commitment to sustain the tradition that Harriton has had in the past. So thank you very much to the board of school directors, Mr. Copeland, and the community.
First task is to do something about Hughes, I think.
Again, congratulations to our new folks and our old that are taking on new capacities. We wish you well, and you have the full support of the Board of School Directors and Administration. We will now have the report of the curriculum committee by Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you very much, Dr. Van Lint. The Curriculum Committee of the Board met on December 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Our main presentation, we had two topics. The first one was an update on global studies, which, just to remind everyone, global studies is part of a new sequence at the high school level. So now students take Global Studies 1, then Global Studies 2 in 10th grade, U.S. History, and in 12th grade, American Political Culture. So we got an update of the Global Studies course that's running this year, and Global Studies 2 will begin next year. Representatives of the social studies departments at both high schools gave an overview, and I think the key concepts were that it's really looking at history across a global perspective rather than the former regional perspective, and now it's a kind of year-long framework for examining regional development and the similarities, differences, and connections among regions. So rather than studying a specific region or two for a full year, they're studying the globe at a particular point of time and looking across the regions. It's inquiry-based, it's history-based, it sounds really fantastic. Some challenges was that the Voyages text, that's their textbook, is written at a high level and requires some reading instruction. Concerned about growing enrollment because obviously we don't want larger class sizes to inhibit discourse in any class, so we'll be watching out for that. And there's an ongoing discussion about sort of what gets included, whose experiences get included, and representing as many voices as possible. The second presentation was an overview of universal screening protocols. Just to remind everybody, in 2011, the Gifted Education Advisory Committee was created to review existing practices in the district for screening and identification for gifted education. We wanted to study equitable screening and identification practices and make recommendations to increase equity. So that was the goal. And the recommendations included universally screening all students at the elementary level, providing consistent guidelines for screening practice, including multiple and varied data sources in the screening process, and using more inclusive assessments. And these new protocols were based on 2 years of work. Last year, the protocols were piloted at 2 schools, and this year it was done across the elementary schools. And about 585 students were screened, and an additional 79 met the threshold for then further exploration of whether they qualified for gifted support. And based on the data that was collected, we're still trying to figure out if more students from underrepresented groups are being identified. Over a period of time, we're going to look into that. And so we need to continue to monitor how this is working, again, with the goal of increasing equity across the district. Finally, we reviewed a contract on for Atomic Learning, which is a site license for $11,807.22 for 1 year. It's a product that provides access to online training tutorials, documents, and videos related to using technology resources for students, teachers, and administrators, and the board voted yes to pass it to facilities and purchasing for review. And our next meeting is January 4th, which is the first day back, so I'm sure we'll have a huge audience for that. We look forward to it.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert.
Under Educational Services, you have 2 items, B and C. I'd ask that you take them both together. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached contract with Atomic Learning to provide online tutorials for software used by staff and students in the amount of $11,807.22 from February 1st, 2016 to January 31st, 2017. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached overnight field trips from Welsh Valley Middle School and Harridan High School and Lower Marion High School.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Student Services, the administration is recommending SS1 through SS9 The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the student services items as listed. Agreement for students receiving non-district educational services.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee by Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Dr. Randy Lynch. It was a long meeting, so hang in there with me. We met this past Thursday, Thursday the 17th. We began by reviewing and approving the list of bills. We then reviewed and approved the purchasing report that includes the following items. Item 1 was to replace lockers on the 3rd floor of Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. The purchase price is $49,107.46. These lockers were tentatively scheduled to be replaced next year in a 5-year plan. However, these lockers have been breaking more frequently, requiring additional maintenance and labor expense. It was determined that replacing them this year is more efficient than waiting another year. In addition, lockers on the first 2 floors have already been replaced, so this would even out the entire building. It should also be noted the new lockers will be smaller than the existing lockers, allowing us to have more locker space for future enrollment. It was commented that the current enrollment projections for BC Middle School will exceed the new higher locker count in a few years. However, we will address that issue as it arises. We also did discuss the use of lockers by middle school students in general. We discussed that middle school students tend to use the lockers a lot more than the high school students, so the need for these lockers in the middle school remains. The next item on the purchasing report was for security fences and gates at several schools: Belmont Hills Elementary, BC Middle School, Cynwyd Elementary, and Marion Elementary. Taken together, the total cost will be $16,250. A few years ago, a task force was convened to review security measures at all of the schools. Many improvements have already been made based on this task force, such as added cameras, card access doors, and realignment of public access through administrative office space. These fences and gates are a continuation of that work. The surrounding civic associations were consulted on the fence and gate type to match existing fences. It should be noted there was a fence proposal for Penn Wynn, but that will be delayed as we are anticipating 1 and possibly 2 construction projects, as we discussed earlier, that could impact the proposed fence. A fence at Penn Wynn will be discussed after construction is completed or at an appropriate time. The final thing for the purchasing report was upgrade lighting at the Gladwin, Penn Valley, and Penn Wynn gymnasiums, total cost of $12,136.50. This is to add higher efficiency, brighter lights to these gymnasiums. Motion sensors will also be added for allowing the lights to turn on and off automatically and save additional energy costs. This project is a continuation as other gymnasiums and other buildings have already been upgraded. We then moved on to district departments contracts and the board committee contracts. The first was the Atomic Learning contract that Dr. Gilbert just discussed, so I will leave it at that. We then discussed the Abington's contract with Abington Speech Pathology Services at hourly rates between $80 and $90 per hour. This is a renewal contract for consultants to continue to provide the district with assistance in testing, evaluating, treating, and reporting on speech issues. The final contract was for Ms. Paula Singer at $100 per hour, not to exceed $16,000. This is a renewal contract for Ms. Singer to provide support in the district's Girls Leadership Council. The district has run this program for the last several years and has been very successful. This contract was reviewed by the Communications Committee, I believe, on December 9th. We also reviewed and approved a master service agreement and individual work order with Chester Valley Engineers. The master service agreement sets forth standard terms that will be incorporated into follow-on individual work orders. The individual work order discussed this past Thursday was for surveying work at Penn Wynn, as we've discussed earlier, as the district moves forward to accommodate our enrollment growth. The cost for that individual work order is $11,000. We then went on to review and approve an amendment to the existing master service agreement with a firm called DePaulo Design Planning LLC, formerly called that, because this amendment does 2 things. It reflects a name change from DePaulo Design and Planning to CMC Engineering, and it also updates CMC's hourly rates as they set in 2015. We then reviewed and approved an individual work order with CMC to do asphalt repair at Cynwyd Elementary, Welsh Valley Middle, and the bus facility at Matson Ford Road. Total cost for all these repairs is $16,000. It was confirmed that the bulk of the Matson Ford Road repairs will not be near the proposed site for the parking deck. Parking deck has not been decided, it's just was kicked around last year. We also did discuss contacting Mr. Don Cannon, the Director of Public Works at Lower Marion Township, to see if any cost savings can be realized should the township be conducting any asphalt repairs at the same time. We then reviewed and approved a contract for Shepherd Restoration Engineers for $10,200 to inspect our exterior facilities at Penn Valley and Kinwood Elementary. This is also part of the district's 5-year facilities improvement plan to ensure our facilities are properly maintained. The inspection may inform the district if any remediation is needed. We then reviewed and approved a contract with Gilbert Architects for a not-to-exceed amount of $150,000 to design plans and documents for land development for the 2 projects at Penn Win. As we discussed earlier, the first project would be for 4 temporary classrooms, and the second project is for a more permanent space. Also discussed was an auxiliary gym, potentially with the permanent space. Obviously, both projects are in response to our ever-increasing enrollment growth. We then went on to change orders at some of our existing construction projects. The first was a decrease of $22,310 for asbestos removal. We had anticipated the possibility of additional asbestos removal from the St. Justin's Welsh Valley site as construction had progressed. As no additional asbestos was discovered, we can decrease this amount on this item. We also had an increase of $1,813.53 for granite curbing. Some of you may know we put in a new sidewalk around Haggis Ford Road, and the township has a particular granite supplier to supply the granite between the sidewalk and the roadway. The original plans had indicated a different supplier, hence the different amount. But as the township's specified supplier was more expensive, then we had to increase this work order. We also had to reviewed an increase for the administrative office of $3,018.20 at Welsh Valley. During construction, additional frame was needed to accommodate UV piping. This change in space then required a change to the reception desk and windowsill. Finally, we reviewed a change order for bulkhead painting for $1,613.91. This bulkhead is in Area C of Welsh Valley. It was supposed to match the color of the bulkhead at the cafeteria. As it did not, we needed to get a better color match. We then went on to receive information, mostly from Reynolds Construction regarding construction projects such as removal of the temporary modulars from Welsh Valley, the grass fields at Penn Valley, Gladwin, and Welsh Valley, and just discussing in general potential change orders as they come up as we try to wrap the Welsh Valley project up. We received an update on construction plans for converting some rooms in the DAO into science labs. And finally, we did review the plans on Penn Win that you saw earlier this evening. Further details will be coming forth as we move through that project. Our next facilities and purchasing meeting will be on January 21st at 8:30 in this room. Thank you.
Under the Business Office and Finance Report, we have 4 recommended action items. I'm going to take them in one motion, unless a board member would like me to separate any one. Seeing there are none. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the following action items: approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for November 2015, accept the Rayner and Company CPA's financial statements and single audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2015, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof as per the attachment.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Facilities and Operations, there's 9 recommended action items. Mr. Driscoll went over them in detail, so I'm going to take them all in one motion. We did have, I believe, Mr. Roos, you changed the language in number E, correct?
Correct. I'm proposing that be amended to state, with the plan presented at the December 21st, 2015 Board Business Meeting with such other modifications as recommended by the administration.
Okay. The administration recommends the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following action items: award the bids to the contractors named in the attached report to replace the 3rd floor lockers at Ballacua Middle School, install security fence and gates at Belmont Hills Elementary School, Kinwood Elementary School, Marion Elementary School, and Ballacua Middle School. Approve gym lighting efficiency at Gladwin Elementary, Penn Valley Elementary, and Penn Wynne Elementary Schools. Approve the independent consultant contract with Paul Singer to coordinate the Girls Leadership Council of Lower Merion School District for an amount not to exceed $16,000. Approve the master agreement for professional services with Chester Valley Engineers, Inc., an individual work order for surveying services at Penn Wynne Elementary School for $11,000. Approve interim design contract with Gilbert Architects for temporary and permanent additions to Penn Wynne Elementary School for an amount not to exceed $150,000, and that contract is subject to solicitor's review. Approve the submission of the land development plan to Lower Merion Township for temporary classrooms at Penn Wynne Elementary, consistent with the plan presented at the December 21st, 2015 board meeting, with other modifications recommended by the administration. Approve the First Amendment to Master Agreement for Professional Services with CMC Engineering. Approve the individual work order from CNC Engineering under the Master Agreement for Consultant Services approved by the Lower Merion Board of School Directors on February 16, 2010 for asphalt repairs and improvements in the amount of $16,000. Approve the proposal from Shepherd Restoration Engineers to conduct a masonry facade inspection at Kenwood Elementary School and Penn Valley Elementary School under the Master Agreement approved by the Lower Merion Board of School Directors on December 20th, 2010 for amount not to exceed $10,200, and approve the change orders for addition and alterations at Penwood Elementary, Walsh Valley Middle School as per the attachment.
Are there any questions? Please.
I just want to state for the record, I do this periodically, that I have no relation with Gilbert Architects. So I just want to.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the policy committee meeting update by Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The policy committee met on December 11th, 2015, and underwent discussion of administrative regulations. From time to time, administrative regulations undergo changes without the need for a change to the policy, and here's a list of them. AR 136, this is being updated for consistency with PDE requirements, which is for home education. AR 718, service animals. This AR is being updated and recommended for changes with compliance with state law. AR 124, extracurricular and co-curricular activities. This AR is being amended to include extracurricular activities. Previously, it was only for co-curricular activities. Also, a new attachment A presents a graphical representation of student eligibility for participation in these activities. This AR will come back to the policy committee meeting next month with changes requested prior to publication on the website. AR number 353, 453, and 553 with regard to required certifications of employees of the school district. The revisions to this AR relate to the changes in state requirements regarding required clearances being renewed every 60 months. AR number 908, volunteers. These revisions relate to the clearance requirements for volunteers for the 16-17 school year. A chart has been prepared and will be added to the AR for clarification of individuals covered by this AR. AR number 610-2, purchasing contract approval procedures. The revisions to this AR relate to contract renewals. The board will be supplied with revised terms, including dates, cost, and other terms, rather than the full contract unless specifically requested by a board member. AR number 809, contracted services. The proposed revisions to this AR refer to the minimum contract requirements as summarized in Appendix A. AR 206-2, assignment of pupils within the district attendance area exceptions. This was a placeholder for discussion regarding the concept of partner or sister schooling, which will come back to us next month under AR 206-4. For review, policies that are being considered for second reading are policy number 130 and the AR. guidelines concerning religion. There were no changes to this policy since its first reading last month. This policy was initially reviewed in the spring of 2015. The adjustment to the policy is to move procedures to the administrative regulation. Also, language has been inserted regarding avoiding conflicts during scheduling athletic activities and coaches, activity sponsors, and related prohibition of retaliation. Policy number 460 and its AR, tutoring for a fee. There were no changes to this policy since its first reading last month. This policy is being reviewed as a result of issues raised by a community member regarding equity and access, as well as the ethics involved with our teachers tutoring students for a fee. The revision also involves a proposed elimination of the ARs for this policy. We discussed one other policy, Policy 118, independent study. This policy was originally suspended at the September 28th meeting. We discussed this policy and its potential revisions. The proposal includes a one-semester course to be completed for no credit towards graduation requirements and would be determined on a case-by-case basis at the time of the request by the student. The administration will be bringing this back for a first reading next month. The meeting adjourned at that point. The next meeting for the policy committee will be on January 8th, and have a safe and happy holiday season.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. The following policies were reviewed for a second reading. Policy 130, guidelines concerning religion, and Policy 460, tutoring for a fee. Are there any questions? Is there, oh, please, Dr. O'Leary.
Sorry, we talked about this extensively at the policy meeting, and I feel that in the tutoring for a fee policy, the restrictions placed on various types of therapists for summer tutoring is not in the best interest of the students. I think it's too restrictive for some students. We debated it. The administration's recommendation is as stands, but I just wanted to let everyone know why I was not voting for that particular policy change.
Thank you, Dr. O'Leary. Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Oh, we need to do roll call on that?
No, but just separately.
Oh, I'll take them separately, okay. So Policy 130, guidelines concerning religion. Any questions? Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Denise, do I need to do roll call for the other one, or you're fine with that? Okay. Policy 460, tutoring for a fee. Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry. Autopilot, my apologies. Got me all confused, Maureen. We'll now have the report of the Finance Committee, Ms. Devonna Ventura.
Thank you. Earlier in the meeting, we approved the audit report, and I'd just like to share that it was reviewed in the Finance Committee and on December 18th, and the auditors had no findings or concerns, which is a good thing. I mean, a clean audit report is what you're looking for, and so that we came out with flying colors. The auditor did mention to me that the procedures that we use, reviewing the list of bills in the Facilities Committee meetings monthly, is one of many good practices that the district has, and so he made a point to comment on that to me. In addition to reviewing the audit report, we had a presentation by Glenn Willard, who is our bond advisor. He is recommending that we consider refinancing our 2006 and 2007 bonds. He thinks we may be able to save in the range of $6 to $8 million, depending on interest rates and other issues. So that will come to the board in January with a firm recommendation of whether or not to go forward. So we'll keep you posted on that. If we did decide to go forward with the refinancing, we'd probably move forward with that in the February meeting with the bonds refinancing in March, correct? Right, yeah. The last agenda item we had at the Finance Committee meeting was we reviewed in pretty significant detail our weekly finance report, which reviews all our investments, the rules for where the money goes, how we invest. This was done in part to just, refresh all the board members on what's in these finance reports and to help our new board members get more familiar with what we do on a day-to-day basis in finance. Our next meeting will be January 15th at 8:30 a.m., where we will again have a report from Mr. Willard regarding bond financing and a preliminary look at the budget, as the budget that was presented tonight was really just a placeholder since we have very little information on which to build a budget from. Hopefully by January 15th, we'll have a little more information and a state budget. So with that, I am my finance report.
Thank you. Next, we will have a report from the Communications Committee. Ms. Ackman. Oh,
No, it's
Dr.
okay.
Gilbert.
So, I'm Ms. Ackman today for a little while. Ms. Ackman had a work commitment, and so I stepped in. No problem. I'm sure you will return the favor one day. We had a meeting on December 9th of the Communications and Community Engagement Committee. And we had news and highlights and achievements. There were so many of them. But particularly sort of winter concerts at this time of year and community service projects. We also have an expanded alumni news area on our website, which looked great. I took a look at it after I saw that. We talked about the strategic plan communications. So the all forward section of the website, which is the strategic planning section, has been updated. There was a superintendent's letter that was sent to the community that highlighted the plan. The board update, which will be coming out soon, will also highlight the plan. In addition, there's the Ask the Superintendent forums, and there's going to be another meeting of the strategic planning, the strategic committee meeting on January 15th. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that moving forward. We also heard about the Community Resource Network update. The Community Resource Network is something that, under Lori's guidance and the Communications and Community Engagement Committee and Doug, have created as part of the strategic planning process, which is sort of connecting staff with requests for expertise. And we're just building this out now. And the first is going to be a request for help with a Lower Merion High School hackathon. And every other communications meeting is also going to be a meeting of the CRN group. It's a public meeting, so everyone's welcome. So the January meeting will include the CRN. There's been some important health service communications. There was an update around pertussis information that was sent out, and there's going to be a reminder letter to the community about weather-related communications, for the upcoming winter season, where I think it's supposed to be tropical for the holiday or something, but don't jinx. All right, I won't. And I think that's the overview, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Now we will have a report of the Legislative Committee. Dr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Dr. Van Litch. On the federal level, President Obama signed the Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaces the No Child Left Behind. Not many people can explain exactly what this means, but it appears to push some of the legislation and some of the responsibilities from the federal government back down towards the state. Some of us had hoped that there would be some reform to standardized testing, and it does say there is some reform, but there's the statement in there that annual statewide assessments that measure students' progress towards national standards is part of this bill. So it's really unclear, and nobody has exactly said what this means for Pennsylvania. On the state level, of course, we have no budget. There is so much happening, and yet nothing is happening. So we get updates every day on all the things that aren't happening. Among the things not happening are the 15-16 budgets. This is affecting a lot of schools desperately. There are a lot of schools that have to take out loans. There are a lot of services that are running out of money or unable to be provided. So while we're in decent shape, there are a lot of support services that are going to suffer badly because of this. The issues surrounding this are not only the amount of the total budget, but the education budget. There's also a lot of talk of pension reform, various ways of increasing taxes or not increasing taxes, and some charter school reform. The next meeting of the Legislative Committee is January 28th, 8:30 a.m. in this room.
Thank you, Dr. O'Leary. We will now take audience recognition on non-agenda items and other items. Please sign in with Ms. LaPera. There's a 3-minute time limit, and if you could let us know your name and where you reside in the Lower Merion community.
Thank you. I'm Indira Guru Bhagavatula. I'm a parent to 2 children in the Lower Merion School District. I reside in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. I'm also a faculty member at Penn in the Division of Sleep Medicine, where I'm a sleep specialist. I'm an associate professor. I've worked as a consultant with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regarding legislation around sleepy driving and commercial drivers. I'm also a member of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine's Transportation and Safety Task Force. And I'm working with that group in developing legislation at the state level regarding education on drowsy driving. And I'm here to talk a little bit about that. You know, you've already heard, I'm sure, in previous meetings about the prevalence of drowsy driving in teens. This is the group that is at single highest risk for crashes. And these crashes are horrible. When you think about yourself behind the wheel of a car when you're driving, and you know you're about to have an accident, and all the things that you'll do to try to avoid that accident. And a sleep driver doesn't do any of those things. So there's no braking, there's no steering away. So these accidents tend to be very high impact, and they're very heavily associated with fatalities and injuries. Our teens are walking around in a constant state of sleep deprivation. And we're setting them up for that because they have a biological propensity to want to sleep at a later time. It's not something that they can help. And we're setting them up for sleep deprivation by demanding an early school start time. So by the end of the week, they all are carrying a sleep debt. They're also driving at a time of day when we're biologically the sleepiest. So siesta time after school when they're driving home, and also in the morning, which for the rest of us would be like 4 a.m. So they're very, very tired when they're behind the wheel of a car. When we measure their performance in a lab, it looks just like a drunk driver. After 18 hours without sleep, we perform like somebody who has a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%. So there are a number of things that we can do. I'm working as a volunteer to develop a video to educate every student in the Lower Merion District. I'm working with a volunteer crew right now. That's only going to go so far until we address the problem of sleep deprivation and allowing them the opportunity to sleep by delaying school start time. My concern is that we're not going to really make an impact on this very important problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Amy Knorr, Penn Valley. I just wanted to want to address a couple of items. First, regarding Harriton, the appointment of Dr. Everslag to Assistant Superintendent is a tremendous gain for the district, but it's a huge loss for Harriton, and I know that was spoken to earlier. I'm grateful to hear that he'll remain at Harriton for the rest of the year, although I'm sure there's going to be a lot on his plate with the joint appointment. So I'm just asking you to keep Harriton in your plans as you for the rest of this year, and acknowledging his dual responsibilities. And also, when there is a search committee, I would ask that the search committee take note of Dr. Everslag's really important qualities, his excellent skills of listening and communication, problem solving and following through, and predominantly his consistent warmth and caring for students, teachers, staff, and families. And then I just want to briefly address 2 other issues that you know I've brought up before, the grading scale and sleep. Mr. Copeland and the district have co-sponsored a multi-community sleep forum that's going to be held in Radnor in February, where there's going to be a panel of three fantastic speakers about sleep, and everybody here will be getting invitations, but I hope that as many of you as possible can attend, because as a community, Lower Merion School District and the greater Philadelphia community, we really need to work to solve this problem. I also would ask, as I know strategic planning committee meetings are going on, that you continue to update the community about what's happening regarding sleep and potential shifted start times, because there are so many in the community that are really interested and concerned about this issue. And finally, regarding the grading scale, I know that's also being worked on, and I was hoping that that would be an issue for which a committee could be formed and completed within this school year. Since to me it seems like such a smaller issue than some of the many others that you deal with. And I know it's very complex and there are a lot of different levels, but I would ask that you look to move ahead with that during this school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In accordance with Act 93 of 1998, the Sunshine Law, the Board of School Directors met in executive information sessions on the following dates and discussed.
It was December 21st, just discussed personnel.
Is that just today?
There was no real estate.
Oh, there's no real estate. Okay, so December 21st, personnel only. All right. And upcoming meeting dates, January 4th, Curriculum Committee, 8:30 a.m. January 8th, Policy Committee, 8:30 a.m. January 11th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting, 8 p.m. January 13th, Communications, 8:30 a.m. January 15th, Finance Committee, 8:30 a.m. January 21st, Facilities and Purchasing, 8:30 a.m. And January 25th, Regular Business Board Meeting, 8 p.m. So please have a happy and safe holiday season, and we will see you in the new year. With that, we are adjourned.